Welcome back to another episode of Weights and Wealth. Today's shout out is actually to my sister, Julia, from Charleston, South Carolina. And she got the shout out for handing out our flyers that are advertising for our editor position that we have open here.
She's actually the third person to hang up Weights and Wealth flyers. And if you do this, we'll give you the raffle drawings for the monthly gift card. So just email info@weightsandwealth.com and we'll send you those flyers if you want to hang them up.
All right, Ted, what's our weights wisdom of the week?
Weights wisdom of the week. If you're counting macros on processed foods, you're basically trying to get a really exact number, but you're using a very non-exact measurement, right? So it's basically like trying to get a number that goes out to 2 decimal points, but the only numbers that you're using are even numbers. It's going to be really hard to get an exact number when you're using such an inexact measurement. So when you are tracking macros, if you are eating a lot of processed foods, just know that there's going to be much more of an error and that it's going to be a lot harder to get dialed in. Not that you can't be successful tracking macros with processed food, it just makes it less exact when you do track. All right, Nick, what have we got today for the intro article?
We got 2 pretty cool economics topics for the intro article and then the talk today. So the intro article is that Social Security is basically death. I don't know if this was the name of the article or if this was Ted's name of the article.
I think the actual name of the article was Social Security's Future Thrust into Spotlight.
Okay.
Social Security is dead, though.
It costs a lot every single year. I know it's the largest part of the U.S. budget. I don't know what percentage. We will get into that on another episode, though.
The problem with it is that there's not money in it because they use the money for other things, because our government is never able to balance the budget.
Right. It just taxes people. Whereas if it were like a 401k, for example, that money would be in there and growing on its own. And the government just taxes people right now to give it to the elderly. Yeah. And that is kind of a big problem with getting rid of it or it failing, is that a lot of the elderly wouldn't really have income.
Yeah.
And they would end up on some sort of welfare anyway.
Well, and not only that, but they've been paying into it their whole life, right? Like you see when you get your paycheck, you can see where it says like the Social Security and the Medicare tax. You can see these different taxes if you look carefully at your paycheck. So people that have been paying into Social Security their entire life, they don't want to be the people that don't get the money when they're retiring, right?
Right.
So it's really hard to say, let's end Social Security, because immediately people that have been paying into it for a while think, I'm not going to get my money that I've paid, right?
Right. And yeah, that's also kind of like an ethical issue. Like they do deserve that money in my opinion, because
Absolutely.
They've been paying into it. But the problem is that I see is when it started that people who hadn't paid into it received it. And then there's also the issue of when it started, the average life expectancy was, I think, around like 67 or something like that. And you would get it at like 65. So you were only on it 2 years, but now people are on it for 20 plus years because people are living to their late 70s or 80s.
Yeah. So you're getting people are on it for way longer, making it cost way more than it was expected to cost when FDR first created Social Security. Yeah. And so if you want to talk more about like the specific rates that would work for like a 401k and how much money you get taxed on the Social Security, do you have those numbers?
So I know the combined Social Security Medicare is 15.3%, which is well above what's recommended to put into a 401k to save for retirement.
That 15% is how much you pay in taxes, Nick is saying.
Yeah, but it's between, so you, like the tax always kind of ends up on the end person, which in this place is the employee, and then the employer also has to cover half. So it's like 7.6 for the employee and then employer, but it's really a cost of hiring somebody. So that's like that comes out of your salary hypothetically. So, and then this kind of also gets into the argument of like, whether the government is supposed to kind of protect its citizens and to what extent. And I guess in this situation, they're not trusting us to invest our money properly and save for our own retirement. So they have to come up with a system that does way worse than we'd be able to do on our own to protect us in the future.
That's a common argument I hear for Social Security, but I think you have to wonder if people didn't know that they were getting this guaranteed money, Social Security, would they be more careful in preparing for retirement? Would people be more diligent in ensuring that they were investing throughout their life? Or is it like, it's okay if I don't wind up having a large nest egg for retirement because I know I'm getting Social Security? Like, even if people don't think that, I think that's subconsciously there.
Yeah, I'm sure it would affect some people. I do think the people that rely on it as their income aren't the people who would be saving it anyway. Yeah. I'm sure there are some that it would kind of flip, but because you get like 20 something, 30 something $1,000. It's not much to live off of.
Yeah. I also think that this is indicative of a societal problem where in other countries, or even in America, if you look back like 100, 200 years ago, the elderly people in your family would take care of those people, right? Mm. But now everyone's families are so segmented that elderly people are just kind of like tossed aside and left to fend for themselves and wind up in nursing homes a lot of the time. And I feel like Social Security is necessary when these elderly people aren't being taken care of by their families and they're not living with their families.
Yeah, and I think that's a big cultural thing because like in America, like you're supposed to like take care of yourself, all that. And I know in like India, like kids will live with their parents until they get married, and they are living with their grandparents as well. So I think it's largely a cultural thing from that aspect too.
Yeah, I feel like America has a lot of these weird cultural things that just come out of when America was founded. There was so much space that everyone just kind of spread out. And you see that in how the cars we drive. A lot of people have pickup trucks, right? Mm-hmm. I have a truck. You go over to Europe, you don't really see that. They don't see that because they have a lot smaller cars because the roads are smaller, and they don't have to go as far. They've got trains and they take flights to other countries. But like, in America, everything's just really spread out and everything just seems to be bigger and people just seem to be more spread out. Even if you look at like how far away you stand from someone when you talk. When you go to other countries, a lot of times you'll stand a lot closer to people.
Yeah, no, I've worked with people who aren't from the US and like it can make me uncomfortable when they're standing like right next to me and I take a step back, they take a step forward, and I've seen like TikToks about that where they just, I don't know, it's funny.
Just keep encroaching on your bubble.
Yeah.
I think one of the problems when we just addressed it earlier, we're saying you can't tell people you're going to stop their Social Security, right? Like people use that as a political thing. If you mention ending Social Security, I think you saw this during the last State of the Union from Biden. The Republicans had mentioned something about Social Security, or a couple of the Republicans, and then it became this whole big thing where all the Republicans were like, we're not going to touch your Social Security, don't worry, because then I think during the State of the Union, Biden said they're coming for your Social Security. It's almost like you can't present any sort of a solution, or the political tagline just becomes they're going to pull your Social Security. I feel like there are ways to end Social Security, but you have to phase it out, right? You stop making people pay into it. People that have already paid into it get that money that they've paid into it, right? But I feel like if you get frostbite on your foot, you want to cut off your toe before it spreads all the way up your leg, right? I feel like that's like where Social Security is right now. Like at some point you just have to cut it off and deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna just continue to get worse, especially with the lowering population. So the tax base is lower. Plus the money's not growing. It's just being taxed every year. So it's not making any money really.
Yeah.
Like a 401k would. So
what do you think the best solution is? Do you think it's stopping people from paying into it anymore and just having the government continue to pay people that have already paid into it? Or what do you think the solution would be? Because if you do stop people from paying into it, you run out of that money to pay people.
Right. Yeah. I would say up the age. I think that would be the first step.
France tried that. Didn't work so well.
I know. People were outraged. I think we talk about that in one of the other episodes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think you start getting it around 65. You can work until you're in your like early 70s. Like I'm like
some people can, but some people's health deteriorates quite a bit, you know?
It does. And it kind of gets like to be a tough topic, but those people probably also won't be on Social Security as long, whereas somebody who's capable of working into their 70s will probably be living into their 80s. So I guess that could kind of be a way to keep people from being on it for 20 plus years.
To me, the real takeaway from this conversation is you should probably just assume that nothing is going to be done about it because the government is horrible at solving problems. So what you should do is take care of yourself by setting yourself up for retirement so that you don't have to worry about Social Security.
Yeah.
Let the taxpayers keep paying into it. There's nothing they can do about it. But then for yourself, make sure that you are slowly putting away money into those index funds and those like long-term ETFs that we've talked about before. And just make sure that you're slowly building towards having a large nest egg for retirement.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like the part that just sucks is they're taking 15% that could be put into investments. But
it would be nice if you could just opt out and say, I don't want Social Security. I'm choosing to opt out. Keep that money and invest it. But then a lot of people would do that and not invest it.
And yeah, right. And then you can't pay for it. And then so our talk is kind of similar. We're talking about universal basic income. It's not really talked about too much in America. I know it's talked about in Europe. There was Andrew Yang. He was in the Democratic primaries. That was one of his big things. And it really hasn't been, I don't think it's been tested out too many places. I know Alaska has some form of it. They get, each citizen gets $1,000 to $2,000 a year, and that's from the oil royalties, I think.
Yep.
So that's there, but then people also want to do it on a bigger scale, and that's where like a lot of the debate comes in, like how much is too much, or you know, something along those lines. And there's kind of two ways to do it. So there's Milton Friedman, who he likes the negative income tax.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you in like probably freshman or sophomore year of college started talking about universal basic income. And at the time I was like, Nick, that's a horrible idea. Why would you want that? But then once I read Free to Choose by Milton Friedman, I was like, okay, this is a way you could do it that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like I'm a big advocate of it. I just think it's an interesting idea to have that as your country's social safety net rather than having food stamps, welfare, Social Security, all these other things that get layered in. I think this could potentially be a better way to do it. But like I said, it hasn't really been tested anywhere on a large scale.
Yeah.
So I really don't know.
So one of the problems with like the current welfare state is there's over like 200 different programs that people are supposed to know how to opt into. It's like the people that actually probably need this help the most are probably not getting all the right programs that they need, right? So the people that are taking full advantage of every single program that they qualify for are probably the people that don't really need it, you know, that have extra time and that are like really looking into it.
Yeah. And I mean, something else it would do in that regard is also kind of cut out all of like the special interests, because all these programs, like we kind of talked about having kids in an earlier episode, like you could do it based on the number of people in your family, but that's like the extent of it. It's not, we also mentioned whether you're married or not, like that has an effect on your social benefits. So it would keep, I think, a lot of politics out of redistribution of wealth.
To me, the most appealing part of this is cutting out the bureaucracy, because so much of the money that goes towards welfare just goes towards paying these government drones to try to distribute it, right? So if we can cut back on the bureaucracy and everyone just gets the same amount of money that like is under a certain income, okay, well now we're cutting out a bunch of government employees and the government saves money that way. And a much larger ratio of that tax money is going actually to the people, right? So we can talk about Milton Friedman's negative income tax idea real quick because a lot of people probably don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Do you want to go into that or do you want me to go over it?
I mean, I can just, I mean, I haven't read the book, but I know what a negative income tax is.
Right.
So basically, like the U.S. has a graduated tax rate system. So on your first, I'm not going to even try to quote the tax rates because I don't know them. But your first X amount of income, you're taxed at 10%, and then it goes to 12% for anything on top of that, and then it keeps going up. And then it could be negative. So if you make under a certain amount of money, you have like a negative 5% income tax. So the amount of money you made times 0.05 would be your negative tax, pretty much.
So the appealing thing to me about a negative income tax is you can actually reward people for working, even if they're still making like under the poverty line, right? So for example, if someone's making under threshold A and they get X amount of money, then, all right, so say someone's making 75% of the poverty line. All right, let's call the poverty line for
$10,000.
Okay, $10,000 is the poverty line you're saying for in this fake scenario.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I think it's more like 16. But let's use $10,000. All right, let's say someone's making $7,500 a year, right? They just work a part-time job. So you could pay anyone that's making $0 a year $10,000. So they're hitting the poverty line, right? They're not getting a lot of money, but they can survive, right? And then if someone's making $7,500 a year, they're under the poverty line, they could get that negative percent, and maybe they're not getting $10,000. Maybe they're getting $7,500 instead, right? So now this person that worked a part-time job and made $7,500, you add the $7,500 they make from the negative income tax instead of the $10,000 that someone that didn't work made. All right, now that person that had a part-time job makes $15,000 total compared to the $10,000 that the person that didn't work at all made. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So now you're actually able to reward people a little bit for trying to find work and trying to contribute to society, right? And then ultimately that way you can make it fair where people that aren't working aren't making more than people that are trying to work a little bit. Right.
Yeah, and then this is where the incentive part comes in, because you're taxing income, you're disincentivizing working essentially. So we're trying to avoid any sort of big drop off like a lot of the current social programs have. Like if you make under 10,000, you get it. If you make over, you don't. So people try to make $9,999 so they can still qualify for a program that could be worth $5,000.
But the thing with a negative graduated income tax is you can completely avoid any kind of unfairness where if you make 999 instead of like 10,000, you wind up making more because of the bonus money you get. If it's just a graduated negative income tax, it's just scalable up until there's a 0% tax rate and then a positive tax rate after that.
Yeah. And it might have been on the higher standard. I was hearing them talk about back when the tax rate was at like 90% or something like that, like the top rate. There were people who were just not working anymore. Like there is a point where it doesn't make sense to do any additional work, because you value your time more than you value the money that you make from it.
I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. So the negative income tax is one way to do UBI. The other way is just to say every person gets $5,000 a year. Doesn't matter if you make $5 an hour or if you're Jeff Bezos. Everybody gets it. Yeah. But the idea is that if we're on a graduated rate, Bezos is paying a lot more tax than the person paying the person making $5 an hour. So that's another way that people have talked about doing it.
Yeah, it's definitely some interesting ideas. I feel like it's really hard to get people on board with stuff like this that they've never really heard about or talked about. And a lot of people don't understand how taxes work today. So how can you expect them to grasp control of this new system and then ask people in Congress to implement it, you know?
Yeah. And my own opinion, I don't think it should be done at the federal level. I think it should definitely be a state thing, just from cost of living alone. And then also, you know, keep things on the smallest level possible.
Also, there is a problem whenever you just give people money, you do attract a certain kind of person. So if you look at San Francisco, that's probably the best example of UBI being tested. And you can find videos all over YouTube of people on drugs in San Francisco saying, yeah, I get paid $800 a month cash. And they live on the street and they use the $800 for drugs. And they just tell the interviewer, yeah, I mean, I make $800 cash every month. I know I'm getting that money. I moved here for that. And it's like, that's going to happen if you just give people money. There's something that happens mentally in a small percentage of people where they're just okay with not contributing to society and having that issue with their life.
Yeah, that's the thing where UBI hasn't been tested. So like it could be tested somewhere and that could become a huge problem. We don't really know. It could also be California, like something like San Francisco is like really nice. Like it's like the weather is really nice. I know Alaska, I don't think they have a big problem with drugs. I think they do alcohol and suicide, but I don't think they have a big problem with drugs.
Other problems to deal with.
But you know, for a state like Alaska, that could be a good way to attract people to live there who wouldn't otherwise live there and bring some more workers in.
Yeah.
So that's why it should be a state issue. Like states can decide if they need to incentivize people to come to their state or not.
I feel like we're seeing that more and more too, where states are like actively trying to separate themselves from how other states do things to try to attract people to move there.
Yeah, I think it's like COVID, I think really pushed that because a lot of people are moving to no income tax states.
Yeah.
So
Tennessee.
Oh, is it? It is. Oh, it is. That Tennessee, Texas, Florida.
Is Wyoming one or is Wyoming? I don't know. I know definitely Texas and Tennessee are. I'm not sure about the other ones.
Okay. But they always get you some way.
Yeah. All right. What do we have next on the schedule? Nick's going to talk about debt, I think.
Yeah. So we talk about Dave Ramsey every once in a while. Ted doesn't like it. But since we're talking about debt, I think it'd be like the way that I kind of structured it is that I'm going to compare what I think is the right way to do debt and then what Dave would say about it, essentially.
All right.
So I'll just go through, but chime in if you have questions or anything. So the first one is credit cards. It's definitely good to carry a low balance on a credit card. I think everyone should have one as soon as you turn 18, provided you are somewhat financially responsible, because you can get yourself into a lot of trouble.
We all know those people.
Yeah. And I would say your limit should really be max 1 month's expenses, because once you go over that, you're really starting to get charged interest. I mean, unless your savings rate is way up there, but definitely not more than your 1 month income, because you have to be able to pay it off.
Yeah.
And those rates are astronomical, like 20+%.
They're all 20% right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, Dave would just say, don't have a credit card.
So this is something interesting with Dave Ramsey, because do you think that Dave Ramsey's businesses don't use credit cards?
They don't.
Are you
He
sure?
does not take business loans. He only has debit cards.
Really?
Which it's impressive. I mean, he doesn't have a business where you need a lot of leverage. He is like us. Our product is this, essentially. I mean, we're not making any money, but
we are losing money.
But like, he just talks, and like, that's his.
What about his different real estate portfolios?
All cash. Yeah.
Really?
The reason that he went no debt is because he went bankrupt, because he got into real estate in like the 70s or 80s. What became a multimillionaire, and then went bankrupt when banks started calling his loans.
Wow.
So
I did not know that he was credit
yeah,
free.
absolutely
I thought he was
free.
just anti-credit, but
Which
I didn't know that.
yeah, it's really interesting. But yeah, I've listened. He like I've said before, he's a very entertaining guy.
Yeah.
I don't believe he has the best financial practices, but he's entertaining. Next would be the mortgage. Just so I haven't bought a house. I don't know what it's like to have a mortgage, but good rules of thumb are like max do not exceed 50% of your gross income or 33% of your net. And you really can't get a mortgage for anything more than that now.
Yeah, they want to approve you.
Right. Yeah. And
also with this, they will approve you up to, like, I got approved. Let's just say they approved me up to 400,000. I would not go anywhere near that. Mm-hmm. You don't want to be spending the max possible that they give you, because then you're not able to probably save money from your paychecks, or you're not able to spend money on other things. If you want to go on a honeymoon with your wife or something like that, you might not be able to pay for that if your mortgage is 50% of your income.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, a good rule of thumb is like 25% of your gross, which is what Dave recommends, but for only a 15-year, not a 30-year. He does not like the 30 years.
Because you pay more interest?
I think his is more that he just doesn't like debt.
Yeah.
So
the thing about debt, are you going to get into this, how debt can be used as a form of leverage and debt can be good?
I was going to a little bit, but not too in depth.
We can just cover that briefly right now. Mm-hmm. Like, that's one of Robert Kiyosaki's big things, is like the really wealthy people leverage their debt, right? And so it's valuable to be able to learn how to do that, right? Like, if you can, a lot of people have really popularized lately, especially with like TikTok, like buying small apartment buildings, right? And then renting out and then getting the cash flow from all the units, right? That's debt. You're taking on debt to do that. But as long as the cash flow is well above what you're paying on that mortgage, then you're going to make money. And that means that's a good form of debt to have, because you're making money every month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there are a bunch of ratios like to figure out how well you're performing based on your debt portfolio. Mm-hmm. Another way is like interest arbitrage kind of. And this is how banks make a lot of their money, is that they receive more interest than they pay in like savings accounts. Until
the Fed sharply increases interest rates over and over and over again. And then things get out of whack, underwater on their
and start going bankrupt. So I kind of did this when I bought my car, because my car rate was like, I was getting a loan for like 4%, but I-bonds were paying 7.6 at the time. So any money that I would have put down on my car, I just put into I-bonds, because like I'm making the 3.6% spread on that. Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't amount to much, but A, it's kind of fun to do, and B, it does benefit me a little bit.
Yeah, at least you're not drastically losing money compared to inflation.
Right.
By holding cash.
Yeah. Okay, and then was there anything else you wanted to add?
Nope.
No. Okay. Student loans. These are very. What?
No, keep going.
It's very, very relative. So it depends on a lot of factors, like your projected income, what kind of degree you're getting, and your own cost of living. So if you're taking on a lot of debt, you better be getting a good paying job after college so that you can pay off that debt and they're not hanging over your head forever.
What are some degrees you might stay away from? What wouldn't be a good investment?
Degrees? I would say anything that probably has a starting salary. Well, that doesn't consider future income, but if you're starting under like $50,000 after graduating college, you probably shouldn't be going for that degree.
Unless you're able to get a scholarship through athletics, right, or ROTC or any other number of ways.
Right. Yeah. If somebody else wants to pay for you to go to college, then get whatever you want. I mean, it will set you back because you won't be making as much, and you should know that, but you're not going into a bunch of debt.
Mm-hmm.
over something that won't really pay out at all.
I feel like the tide is really starting to turn on this, and people are realizing more and more that the cost of higher education is so inflated by the resort style campuses, and people are paying for way more than just the classes and the actual value of the degree. So I feel like, especially with like our current generation, the tide is starting to turn on this as people realize what all their friends from high school that didn't go to college are making compared to them.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, in the trades, you'll make more than anyone with like a college degree usually for at least the first couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, I was just talking to a guy in the trades right now. He's he's around my age, and he's making like $10,000-$11,000 a year. Like
a month.
A month. Yes, a month.
He needs that UBI.
Yes, per month. So the trades pay very, very well. And so that's another option. Plus, you don't have to go into debt. You don't have the opportunity cost. Like we are, like you don't work much in college. You're working those 4 years that other people are in college.
You get a head start.
Trades. Yeah.
Which, especially if you take advantage of that head start and put that money away into either like a 401k or an IRA, you're really starting to get out ahead of everybody.
Yeah, and we talk about the time value of money a lot. Those first few $1,000s that you invest, if you're starting at 18 versus 24, like that makes a big difference. Yeah. Those 6 years. I
mean, by the time you're 40, that's the difference of like being double,
right?
Compared to the person that started at 24.
Because the rule of thumb is that the stock market doubles every 7 years, I think. Yes. So. And on that, Dave would say absolutely no student debt, which, I mean, it's not a bad route, but if you have like no other options to go to college and you're going for like computer engineering or some sort of engineering or like, accounting or finance, like those are good ways to go.
Or medicine.
And medicine, yeah. Would not be bad to take on some debt to do that. And then another thing I have is business loans. These are very case by case. But as long as you're not propping up a failing business with a business loan, it's too hard to really create any rules about them.
Yeah.
And then we got car debt. I'm not like a huge fan of it. But I mean, you do need something to drive. You should go less lavish if you are taking on debt for it. But I mean, the payments usually aren't that high unless you're getting like a $60,000-$70,000 car. I know we talked about it at one point, but the Army guys with their Chargers is the famous one.
Yeah.
So yeah, Dave would say no debt on that either. Personal loans would definitely avoid them. They do tend to be lower interest than credit card debt though. So if you are really in a pinch and like you have to come up with some money, that's a better option than going into credit card debt. And then the last one is bail bonds. I would just say don't get arrested.
That's smart. That's good advice for our listeners, Nick.
And yeah, that's all I have on the debt.
All right. Moving over to the weights side of things, if our cameras stop malfunctioning, that just needs a power button. Oh, too hot, overheating.
Yeah. Well, we still got this one.
All right, we still got one. I'll just move closer to Nick for the rest of this. Get in the same shot here. All right. All right, so I'll be talking about some macro accounting mistakes that people make. So the first one I'll go through is just the difference in sizes of some foods. A lot of people will count macros and they'll log a potato as a potato. But if you go to the store and you get different kinds of potatoes, you'll quickly see that some potatoes are 2 times as big as other potatoes. So if you just count as a potato, you could be getting the 1 potato-sized potato or the 2 potato-sized potato. So 1 whole potato, if you log into your macro counting app, at least in my app, one whole potato is 6.1 ounces, and that's 160 calories. Now, the actual average potato at the store is anywhere from 5 to 10 ounces, and this becomes 132 to 264 calories compared to what the macro app has as 160 calories. So very quickly, you can log a potato, but the potato that you actually eat can be 100 calories more than the potato you thought you were eating. So this is where if you have like a food scale, that can really help you out if you're trying to be more exact with your macro counting. And if, like, say you're 100 calories over on all your meals, that really quickly adds up to being a few thousand calories over in a week. Then you're in a big surplus. The next example I have is another food that a lot of people eat, a boneless, skinless chicken breast. So again, in my macro counting app, a normal skinless chicken breast would be 4.2 ounces and 127 calories. Now, if you go to the store, the average chicken breast is 6 ounces, a lot bigger than 4.2, and ranges from 4 to 10 ounces. So the range at the store that you find is 120 to over 300 calories compared to what my macro app has of 127 calories. So that's more than double that you can wind up in. Or on the other end of the span, if your macro counting app has the higher end of that range, but you wind up with a 4-ounce chicken breast, maybe now you thought you were hitting your protein goal, but you're drastically under it, right? So this very quickly can wind up becoming big mistakes. And if you ever want to see just how off this can be, take a spoonful of peanut butter and weigh that and see if that lines up with the serving size on the peanut butter jar. Because most people, when they eat peanut butter, eat way more than they think. So if you are counting macros, it can be really helpful if you're weighing foods like that.
How do they figure out how many calories is in something?
You can use, if you have a laboratory, you can use a bomb calorimeter where you basically burn the food and see how much energy it creates.
Oh, okay.
That's like 10th or 11th grade chemistry class in high school. You try to see who can get to the closest value of an actual potato chip by making your own and out of like a soda can. And did you ever do that?
No, I don't remember doing that.
Do you remember doing that, Katie? Alex, did you do that? No.
I just remember learning the periodic table and a bunch of stuff about it. I don't remember too much else.
That could have been AP Chem because Katie and I both took AP Chem. It might have been.
Yeah, mine was not AP.
All right. The next big mistake that people make with counting their macros is eating out in processed foods. So I came across some, I don't know what you would call them, some FDA documents that go through the regulations. So I'm just going to read some quotes from some different sections of that, and really quickly you'll get a feel for how what the labels say on a lot of processed foods might not actually be what you're getting. So if you look at Title 21, Chapter 1, Subchapter B, Section 101.9, Paragraph G5, you will find a food with a label declaration of calories and other nutrition facts shall be deemed to be misbranded if the nutrient content of the composite is greater than 20% in excess of the value for that nutrient declared on the label. What this is basically saying is that a food label will only be deemed misbranded if it's over 20% in excess, right? So this means that a lot of the processed foods you're adding might be closer to 20% over the number of calories that the label says, because companies, if they want you to buy their chips or cookies, it can benefit them if it says that has fewer calories on there for their sales than it actually does. So these food companies, having millions of dollars or billions of dollars at their disposal, are going to toe that line pretty close to the 20%. I would think that would be what they would be doing if they were smart businessmen. So.
Yeah. What's the margin of error on burning the food? Do you know, to figure out how many calories there are?
Oh, I mean, I don't know, but the FDA has a lot of resources, and I would assume they're pretty close because they're using high-tech equipment. Like what I was saying with what Katie and I did for our experiment is like we literally made a fake bomb calorimeter by cutting a Coke can open and putting toothpicks through the bottom and putting a Lay's potato chip on top of that and then having a fire underneath it and burning it.
Okay.
But I mean, they're using many thousands of dollars worth of equipment.
But it's safe to say that it's not close to 20%.
Oh, no, definitely not.
So this is room for some misguidance.
That 20% wiggle room is not for the error in the FDA's measurement.
Yeah.
The next thing I have is from a study that I found on PubMed that went around and tested the calorie content of a lot of commercially cooked foods or fast food and restaurant food. Now, what they found is that the foods they tested averaged 18% higher calories than was stated on the menus, which isn't that alarming based off the 20% statistic that we just saw. But what was alarming in the study is that some of the restaurant foods were up to 200% over the listed calorie content. And some of the entrees at some restaurants were, the actual calorie content was about 245% over because they didn't include the sides that came with the entree. And in some restaurants, so they were kind of misleading there. But basically, what you're seeing on the restaurant menu in terms of calories is probably not what you're getting. So when you are tracking macros, it really does help to be eating foods that you are cooking yourself.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it takes a rocket scientist to figure out you're eating 3 times more calories than what's listed. I mean, unless you really have no idea what a calorie is.
I don't know, dude. Like calories from fat, just like oil that's used to cook food, that can add up real quick without it feeling like you're eating extra food.
That's true.
I mean, have you ever tried drinking olive oil? That's
yes,
a lot of calories.
Actually, no, I have. When I was trying to put on weight in high school, I tried drinking olive oil.
Wrestlers.
And got sick to my stomach and didn't try it again. It was disgusting. But yes, I've tried drinking it. It's like 120 calories per tablespoon.
Yes. Yep.
Yes,
that is what it is. Yes.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All right, moving on to the next mistake and totally ignoring that Nick drinks olive oil is another FDA document. So this is in Title 21, Chapter 1, Subchapter D, Section 101.60, Paragraph B1I. Calorie content claims. It says the terms calorie-free, free of calories, no calories, 0 calories, without calories, trivial or insignificant source of calories may be used on the label or in the labeling of foods, provided that the food contains less than 5 calories per reference amount customarily consumed or labeled serving. So, Nick, if you're eating a piece of candy and the serving size of that candy is one little piece, which they can do, that could be 4.5 calories. And they can say that it's 0 calories.
Calorie free, okay.
Right? But then if you have like a little handful of that, you might think it's 0 calories when it's actually 90 calories.
Okay. I mean, why can't they just round properly? Like round to the nearest 5?
Because it says that they can count it as 0 calories.
Just count down?
It says that they can round it down to 0. And if they can put calorie free on that, they're more likely to sell it, right? Because people think calories bad. So.
And people are more likely to eat more of them because they're like, oh, it doesn't have any calories. Like I can eat as many as I want.
Little do they know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just another little hack that these companies can use. So with these things, what this really shows me is just that if you are trying to be really exact with counting calories and you're logging all your food, you're probably miscounting if you're eating a lot of processed foods or if you're eating out at restaurants. Right. So if you are counting macros, you know, there's a lot of different ways to diet, to lose weight, to bulk, to cut, whatever you're doing. macro counting is a very popular way. If you're doing it right, it's going to work. Unless there's some larger hormonal issue going on that needs to be fixed first. But if you are spending a lot of time counting your calories, I suggest you eat predominantly a whole food based diet so you can avoid some of these things that are throwing off your hard-earned counting.
Very good. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Weights and Wealth. We hope you learned something, even if it was just that you shouldn't drink olive oil.
Thanks, guys.